Hi, my name is Neal Dikeman, and I'm running for United States Senate. I'm the Libertarian nominee for Texas in 2018. I'm here to talk to you a little bit tonight about my policies, the issues that matter to me, and what we're going to do about them. If you go to nealdikeman.com or follow us on Facebook at Neal Dikeman for Senate or our Twitter at Neal Dikeman, you will find what we're all about. You'll also find a whole series of campaign cartoons that we've put out talking about issues. Well, you guys, my supporters, have started asking, that's great, Neal, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but I'd like to hear some more depth. So that's what we're going to try and do tonight. We're going to work through a series of policy vignettes, and the first one we're doing tonight is on the federal debt and the federal deficit. This is one of the main reasons that I'm running. My little daughters mean the world to me, and I intend to leave the world a better place for them. And I'm tired of my elected officials kicking the can down the road on all sorts of topics, but certainly on the federal debt. I'm a finance guy, started off in investments and finance, founded 7 companies. I really understand how to run an organization. And I'm getting more and more frustrated when our elected officials basically put their head in the sand on important issues. The federal debt that we're at today is approaching levels that we have not seen since World War II. Guys, I wasn't born the last time we had debt levels this high. And you could blame it on the Great Recession, you could blame it on 9/11, any number of things have been blamed. But the bottom line is we're now reaching levels that are really that red zone, that danger zone. This isn't the same federal debt we've been talking about for years, which used to be in kind of the 40-ish% range of GDP. It was manageable. You know, not cheap, not small, not high, manageable. Today, we've doubled that. We're now sitting at 80% of GDP and on our way to 100. And this is the zone where economists get concerned that you just have trouble servicing it because the interest on the interest starts to bear down on you. Exactly how do we get here? Our government is currently borrowing about 20% of every single dollar it spends. You know, you can imagine to fix that with a tax increase, they literally have to add 20% to all of our taxes, which none of us want. Our government passes budgets on an annual basis. Oh, wait, they used to. For the last couple of decades, they've been passing budgets sometimes as short as a few days or a week because they can't agree on how to get a budget done. Our government used to pay attention to how their money was spent, just like every church, every state, every city, every company, every nonprofit in America. Certain amount of money coming in, make sure the certain amount going off roughly balances, at least over the long term. But we haven't done that. Our elected officials, to whom we pay $174,000 a year, can't seem to get a budget passed, let alone manage our fiscal house. It'd be bad enough if we were just talking about the federal debt, this $20-odd trillion that we've got, about the same size as the economy when you add in the other liabilities that the federal government has. But it's not that. Since 2008 and the Great Recession, our other big elephant in the room, the liabilities for Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid, our entitlement funding, the programs that we haven't been fully funding for the last several decades, that we haven't been fully charging for, the liabilities on those also doubled. The combination today is something on the order of $43 trillion. Now the number is so big it's hard to put that in human terms, to get your arms around what it means for you and I. Let me try and help here. This is what got me so frustrated. That $43 trillion, when you divide it into the number of households in America, means we're running at about $340,000 per American family in federal liabilities. Guys, this is twice the American mortgage. Even if you assume, oh, it's okay, we're going to make the corporations pay it. That would be great. Corporations currently pay about 25% of the income taxes. Problem, even if you double that, which I'm not saying we can or should do. In fact, I think that would have a massive deleterious effect on the economy. But if you did, you and I still have more than our mortgage that we, the taxpayers of America, have to carry. If we start now, we have time to manage this. We have time to work it through. But not if we keep borrowing 20% of every dollar. Now, I don't know if you know it, but Congress actually has its own accounting department called the Congressional Budget Office. And they basically set this up so they had their own bean counters helping them out, not just having to listen to what the executive branch says. And the Congressional Budget Office is actually pretty good. They know how to run math, they know how to do budgets, they know how to do accounting. And every time Congress passes a bill, they take a look at it and tell Congress how much it's going to cost them. So they did the same to this last combination of tax cuts and spending increases that we passed right here about a year or so ago. And what they've said is, we're going to add $12 trillion to that 43 over the next 10 years. By the time my little 5-year-old gets to high school, another $100,000 per American family. And I know a lot of my friends on the right would just say, hey, we're going to grow our way out of this. And I would love to. Problem. The Congressional Budget Office also says the entire economy is only going to grow about 10 trillion in the time the federal government is going to borrow 12. And guys, you can't grow your way out of debt when you are out borrowing your growth. So what are we going to do about this? The solutions have been on the table for a long time. Our congressmen and senators just aren't willing to take their head out of the sand or take the political pain of actually getting their job done. I'd like to propose a few things. Number one, we need to do 2-year budgets. No more 1 day or 1 week continuing resolutions. In fact, no more continuing resolutions. Hell, these congressmen and their aides shouldn't be getting paid if they can't put a budget in place. Full stop. 2-year budgets at least force us to look forward a little bit. Next, we need to do zero-based budgeting. That's not the only way to do budgeting, but when you get into trouble, it's a great one. Let me explain what zero-based budgeting is. Let's say you have a corporation and you spent $100, or any organization, you spent $100 last year. So come this year's budget. Well, how much are we going to spend? Well, we know we spent $100 last year, so let's see if we're going to need to go up to 103 or down to 97 this year. That's fantastic. Unfortunately, it's also a recipe for costs to continue to increase, and that's what we've seen. Our federal government, every year for the last 6 years that my competitors, Congressman O'Rourke and Senator Cruz, have been in office, every year, in every single budget category, spending went up. Zero-based budgeting fixes that. Because zero-based budgeting doesn't say, hey, let's start with the $100 that we had last year and add or subtract what we think the changes we might need are. Let's start with zero for every department. Same department heads do it, same process, but you justify every single dollar and say, hey, it doesn't matter how much I spent last year, this is how much I need to do the job this year. Then when you get to the end, you look at it and say, well, do we have enough income to cover that? And if not, you go back and tell guys the next solution, across the board freezes. Hey, we just can't spend more than we did last year because we don't have it this year. Now in our case, we've run up our debt so high that we probably are going to have to do a little more than just across the board freezes. 6 years ago, when my competitors got into office, we might have been able to get away from that with that. In fact, if you had simply frozen government spending 6 years ago when they got into office, right now, we'd be running no deficits. But they didn't. So instead, we're borrowing 20% of every dollar. So now, going forward, what if we just took 1% less and spent it next year? 99% instead of 100, $99. Is there anyone who really believes that every single department in the government couldn't get their job done with 1% less? That's silly. That's like saying the average American family cannot survive on about $500 less next year. Do they want to? No, everybody like a $500 raise. But it's not hard. Any department manager in the world can find 1%. And then the year after, I need you to do that again for just a few years. And then we start growing it again once we've got the debt under control. We let GDP ride. It's kind of like what they call in personal finance, banking the raise. Every time you get a raise, don't increase your spending up to that level. Just put that raise to savings or to paying down your debt, and pretty soon you're out of debt. And we don't even have to do it for very long. We just can't continue to grow debt faster than we grow the entire economy. The other final thing, and you got to do this, and it happens to every organization. You get sacred cows. Republicans in Congress say, well, I can't cut defense, and the Democrats say, I can't cut X, Y, Z funding for families. Great. Problem, we don't have enough money not to cut anything. In fact, we definitely don't have enough money if we give every single one of y'all, every department, a 2 or 3% increase. The average American family hasn't been getting that. So why has the federal government been getting it? So let's take care of this. Small spending cuts for just a short period of time. Let economic growth do its part. Deal with the entitlement funds. Deal with this big, massive liability that we've built up. 2-year budgets so we can think a little bit longer term, not in days or weeks. No more continuing resolutions. Zero-based budgets until we get out of this mess. and no sacred cows. Running a budget process, and frankly managing our federal government's funding and financing, doesn't have to be brain surgery. It's not. 535 of our best and brightest in Congress, all making $174,000 a year with big staffs. Hey, job number one, guys, pass a budget. Job number two, please don't run out of money. Job number three, stop kicking your debts down the road to my 5-year-old. She doesn't deserve it. She deserves better. Thank you. I'm Neal Dikeman, and I'm running for United States Senate as the Libertarian nominee in 2018.